Come to Brazil.
Yeah.
I just have to troll sometimes, just having some fun.
Exactly.
As you guys can see, I'm here today with Rob of Epica to talk about the Alchemy project out November 11th on Atomic Fire Records. I can see you're in a good mood. You guys just finished a North American tour with Sabaton, but I have to ask you, how's things going for you?
Pretty good. It was a long tour, but I must say that even on the last day, I was like, wow, I wouldn't mind if we would continue like a few weeks extra, because it's been a really good tour.
You guys had a good time. I saw some pictures. You guys went to see Iron Maiden with In Temptation. It looked like it was a fun time for you guys.
Absolutely. We also, I must say that we also, here and there, it also has been a rough tour because our bus broke down, and there, at the moment in the States, there is like a shortage of tour buses for especially touring bands. I don't know what's going on, but yeah, I mean, because of the pandemic, a lot of companies went bankrupt, and there's definitely a shortage of buses. Most of the bands are dealing with the same shit anyway, but yeah, our bus already broke down like on the first day. We had problems with the compulsion. So we actually in bed, when we were like lying in our bunks, sleeping at night, at least we were trying to sleep, we were actually literally shaked through our bunks. A few times I already bumped my head against the ceiling because the bus was going up and down all the time. So the first 2 weeks was like pretty heavy because we hardly get any sleep. And all of that kind of stuff kept going and going. We had problems with the brakes. We had to sometimes fly over to the other show and that the bus will follow us again. In the end, the last show when we were in Montreal, like when we just passed the border, the engine stopped and it didn't start again. It was completely messed up. And we had to rent cars to make it to the show in New York. And we arrived at the venue at doors at 7 o'clock, and we still had to load in. We still had to build up. We still had to sound check. But we still made it in time because everything was, we turned pretty much into an oil machine by then, of course. But yeah, it's been a tour with like mostly ups, of course, but also some downs, especially if it comes to that part.
So let's talk a little bit about the Alchemy project. I was surprised with this release. First of all, I didn't realize you guys were with Atomic Fire. That was surprise number one. Surprise number one, I was just surprised with the release period because it was very different. So yeah, what was the catalyst, or either who or what was the catalyst for you guys to put together such a unique record?
Well, actually, you can blame COVID. Well, because the idea for this project came to life when we actually just had rounded up the recordings for Omega, and I mean, around that time, Europe was into lockdown, like the very first lockdown. And we were sitting there like, fuck, man, the tours are going to be postponed or canceled. All the festivals are going to be canceled. We have to postpone the release of our album. What the hell are we going to do? And then Isaac came with this idea. Like, he said, well, there are a lot of bands at the moment, or a lot of musicians from other bands doing covers and whatnot on YouTube and all these channels doing this collaboration thing. Like, we could do something similar, but wouldn't it be cool if we like invite all our friends from other bands or people we know from other bands, and write actual new music and make a release out of that? And I liked the idea right away. And then we were thinking about, like, yeah, but how do we want to make this sound? Do we want like a very typical Epica release, or do we really want to fuse the bands and make some kind of a weird out of the box kind of thing? He said the out of the box option, and I was like, okay, bring it on.
It is really, I mean, there's some songs that have more of an Epica DNA, but then there's some tracks, and I'll get into some of them later, that are really, really outside the box. So once you guys had this idea that this is what we're going to do, what was the next step? Was the next step start thinking about how the songs are going to go, or was the next step finding who's going to be coming in to collaborate on these tracks?
Yeah, the first thing is like we make a list of people that we were going to approach, and definitely like options of people, because people also have to be open for this, which I totally understand. And we made a list, and I started calling people right away, like from after the first meeting when we discussed the idea, because I liked it right away. Because I'm like, I mean, I love what we do with Epica, but I always like to experiment a lot. So that's probably one of the reasons why I was so enthusiastic about this. And yeah, like for instance, the first person that I contacted was Jürgen from Shining. And because he's such an open-minded dude, and also his taste is all over the place. It goes from the most weird, obscure stuff to most mainstream pop rock music, basically. And so I knew he was right away that he would be like a perfect person to work with because he's so open-minded. And that's when things start to get rolling. And from that on, we approached the guys from Flash God Apocalypse. Then I approached Phil from Mariah Heap, and so on and so on and so on. And that's how the thing actually started to get rolling. And like I said, we didn't have like a real like musical concept, as in, okay, this has to sound like this or like that or whatsoever. It was like total musical freedom, and we'll see how this thing will end up anyway.
Was everybody that you reached out to as excited as you were about the prospects of creating something that's like a hybrid of what both artists can normally do on their own time?
In general, I must say most people were very enthusiastic. Some people were a bit skeptic, I'll admit, and I can imagine, of course, because on paper it sounds pretty weird.
There are some combinations that are very weird. Like,
yeah, exactly.
I mean, like I said, I want to ask you about some songs like Sirens and Human Devastation, but so there are some weird combinations. I was just like, how are they going to make all of this work? Because
right.
it's such a it's not like you guys are doing Epica covers. You're creating new songs, but you're blending two different, in some cases, very opposite and different DNAs. So I can understand some of that, skepticism as far as how is this going to work. Is there someone that you didn't get to work with this time that maybe is on your bucket list for a future project?
Oh, definitely. And but in most cases, I must say that in the most cases, it was also because of, I mean, a lot of bands had a lot of shit to solve because of the lockdowns, of course, because basically on paper, we were all unemployed. So a lot of bands, like a perfect example is, for instance, we also contacted Lacuna Coil, but they were already like, they really wanted to collaborate, but at the same time, they also had to make a new album. So they had to focus, which I totally understand. And on paper, I mean, it would be really cool to do like I mean, good friends, awesome band, and also like a combination of Simone and Christina. I'm pretty sure that would work out pretty fine.
I was actually shocked when I went through the list to see who was on the record. I was shocked when I didn't see Lacuna Coil in there, because I honestly thought that was going to be such a shoo-in.
Yeah, but there was definitely, we were definitely talking about it, and there are way more bands that sounded pretty obvious that well, originally we wanted to involve as well, but we were like, okay, let's just go for it. Let's just do this. And because we also had a little bit of a problem that there were so many things also, like we had also to deal with Omega Live, and shows started coming in as well. So for a while, this project was put on hold as well, I must say. And later on, we were like, I mean, we already had a whole bunch of really cool songs coming out. It's like, we definitely have to release this no matter what. Because first the idea was to do like a full record. And later on, it was like, yeah, damn it, but we also got tours coming up again, and the agenda was starting to fill up again. So that's also one of the reasons why we decided to do an EP, to go just like, okay, let's just do the 7 songs that we already have, and we'll see what the future might bring.
Was the recording done individually, or did you guys bring these folks into the studio and you guys kind of work together almost as if you were a full band?
Well, the writing process was done from mostly online, because I mean, everybody was in lockdown, people weren't allowed to travel anyway, so that was pretty much impossible to do it as a band, of course. But when we got into the studio, yes, we hired the same studio as that we always use, and we definitely recorded this as a band, as a unit. And that's also cool to know. We didn't, because normally we record all the instruments separately, but now we actually recorded everything as a band at the same time.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was, I must say, I was also pretty impressed by it as well. But it also means, it's also a very, very big compliment to ourselves as well, that we really work as a unit, but also with the guest musicians as well. Like this afternoon, I actually had a phone call with Jürgen from Shining as well. He said like he was really impressed, like how well we are all, working together, and also when he joined in on guitar and vocals, how well he blended in. Even though
it seems like you guys have been playing together with all these bands for all of your careers. I mean, the blend is really interesting, because you don't feel like it's chopped up. It doesn't feel like there's like pieces that are being inserted in there. It just feels very organic.
Yeah, exactly. And especially funny enough, one of the most organic songs on it was actually Human Devastation. Because because it probably doesn't sound like that, but it was really like a reunion of God Dethroned with me on bass, basically, when we went into the studio. And I also noticed with Henry as well, like in the beginning, he was a little bit like shy and skeptic, like, I don't know if this is going to work, but yeah, let's just give it a try. And after you could notice when we started rehearsing the song all over and over again, like in each and every time we played it, it got better and better and better until we get like the perfect vibe for the song. And that's when Joost hit the record button, and we did it like in no time.
When it comes to a performance by a guest artist on this record that surprised you, is the performance on that song the one that stands out to you as the most surprising one?
Oh, that's a good question. I to be honest, I can't really judge that in a very objective way anymore, because I've heard the song so many times. But it was but I must say that track was a very pleasant surprise, because in the beginning we were, I don't know, worried is the wrong word, but first of all, we weren't like really convinced yet if it would work out, because it was such an extreme track and it really didn't have any of the Epica elements into it whatsoever. So we were like, okay, this is a bit of a standalone track, but fuck it, let's just try it. Let's just go for it. And when we started to record, it was such a fun song to record, because we were really laughing our asses off in the studio because it was so heavy. But at the same time, it's been recorded and played in such a raw and aggressive way that it turned out great in my point of view.
Yeah, it's like I was listening to Cannibal Corpse. I was like,
right.
I was thinking to myself when I was listening to that track, this song does not belong on any Epica record that I've ever heard in my life. No. Were you guys wondering what the reception from the fans will be when they get to listen to that song?
Yes and no, because I wanted, of course, you're always kind of like, oh my God, how are people going to respond to this? But at the same time, it's like the main goal of this album was like the name already says, it says, yeah, it's a project. First of all, it's not a follow-up album, not at all. That's also how we approached it. It's like a separate island, like a musical island on its own. And it's all about the alchemy between the musicians, and it's all about the fun in making music. It's like the main thing about this project was like having fun in the studio and to stay motivated making music in a very weird and very unpredictable time.
That song, correct me if I'm wrong, but I couldn't find any of Simone's vocals on that track.
That's pretty correct.
Okay, because I think I listened to that song maybe 10 times, and I'm like, putting the volume up, putting the volume down, trying to look for it. I thought maybe backing vocals, maybe a layer here. I'm like, I don't think I can find them there. So
your ears are well trained. Yeah, that's in a way it would have been fun if she would have been on it as well. But you're hearing everybody. You're hearing Henry. You're hearing Sven from Aborted, and you're hearing us, because we're all screaming our asses off in the studio.
Another great track was Sirens, with Mirkur and Charlotte Vessels. That perhaps is a little bit more of an Epica song, but at the same time, not. I felt like it was kind of like, if you look at this instead of an EP, if you look at this as a full-length record, that's kind of the ballad of the album that kind of breaks the record. It's one of my favorite songs on the whole release. How do you feel about that track and how well it came out? It's really a vocal track at the end of the day.
Absolutely, yeah. That's an idea that we already also discussing, like a collaboration between Charlotte and us and Simone, of course. Amelie came in later in the process. The basic idea for the song came from Charlotte, and she said, like, I have this idea. She already had some melodies going on. It wasn't a complete track yet, but that's like, okay, she and Simone worked on the vocal lines and on the lyrics and the theme about the song and whatsoever. And later on, I joined in to I actually kind of brought in the heaviness of the song, because I said, like, it also kind of needs a little bit more of a band vibe into it. So, okay, bring it over and I'll add the band into it. And of course, the rest of the guys added their flavor into it as well, of course. But that's how it kind of came to life. That's like the basic idea came from Charlotte. And then also Simone gave her a twist to it as well. And then we came all over it. And then
it is what it is. Do you have a favorite song on this project?
Ooh, it's that's pretty hard to say, because I must say I really like them all. But One of my favorite is probably the minor.
With my boy Asim on that track there.
Yeah, exactly. Because that was also because, I mean, the writing process, like I said before, it all happened online. We had like very long Zoom conversations and writing sessions by video calls, basically. And the cool thing is that during those video calls, I also became much closer to a lot of those musicians as well. Like, and Asim is one of the perfect examples, because most of the times when we sometimes had like video calls of, let's say 7 or 8 hours, of which we maybe did like 2 hours of making music, and the rest was just talking and talking and talking. And in a good way, because it's yeah, I mean, for us musicians and for everybody, basically, it's been a very dark time, of course. And that brought us together pretty much, I must say. We became pretty close friends because of that. And that's also a good thing about this project, that a lot of people that we already knew became actually closer friends compared to before.
I'll tell you one thing, the guy can keep a secret, because I talk to him, I wouldn't say every day, but I talk to him at least once a week.
Yeah.
And all he told me is that I have this special project thing that I'm working on. And he wouldn't tell me a thing. Like, he wouldn't tell me with who, with what it was, what he was doing. I'm like, dude, like, give me something. I won't say anything. No, I can't tell you anything until it comes out. I can't tell you anything until it comes out. Wow, the boy can keep a secret.
Yeah, absolutely. He's better at keeping secrets than we are.
Now, when it came to this, I want to take it a little bit into this North American tour. And as you look forward, are these Alchemy songs going to stay as this project? Or if the opportunity presents itself on a future tour to have some of these songs performed, would that be something you guys would be open to?
Yeah, because I must say that, of course, it's going to be difficult to do it without the guest musicians, because they really play a very prominent role in most of the songs. But we already like,
if you guys were on tour with Flesh God, for example, just, you know, I'm throwing that one out there. Would that be something that you guys would be open to do?
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah.
Wow.
And because I mean, we already, with the 20th anniversary show, was also the premiere of this project when we like announced it, but it was also the premiere of the final Lullaby, for instance. And that's when Jürgen joined us on stage. And it was also good to see that those songs actually work on stage. And we were all like standing there with a smile playing those songs. It gave us a good vibe, but also the audience really liked it, because each and every time when you play a new song that people haven't even heard yet, people are normally standing like this. And now people were really like, yeah, this is actually, people were actually trying to sing along with the song, even though it was impossible for them to know the lyrics by, for instance. And that was like a pretty good compliment. That was like a huge compliment. Like, okay, we know these songs are really going to work also live as well. So it is not necessarily our intention to do this live, but I wouldn't be surprised if every now and then a song might pop up live.
Yeah, you never know when the opportunity comes up.
Exactly.
You guys have this tour behind you. There wasn't your normal dates, if you will, on this tour, because you skipped a lot of cities, including Toronto. When are you guys coming back to North America on a headline? Do you guys have a schedule in mind? Is there something in the works at least?
Not yet, yeah, because what you said, like the cities were actually chosen by Sabaton mostly. They have a very clear vision in which cities they mostly want to play or should play because of their following and whatsoever, which we totally respect, of course. We are definitely already looking at options for a possible North American tour. But first things first, we are still kind of, rounding up this tour as well and focused on the other tours. And our manager Daniel's already talking about what the options might be for fall next year. You never know, because to be honest, in 2024, we most definitely will mostly be in the studio anyway.
Because you guys are due. I can't even remember the last time you were in North America on a headlining tour. Or at least playing in Toronto on a headlining tour. It's got to be 2018, maybe?
Yeah, because the last time that we played it in America was 2019. Oh, no, well, sorry, 2020 actually. But we did just a couple of shows because that was because of the Design Your Universe and Design Your Universe anniversary tour.
Yeah. You did some selected shows. I remember that.
Right, exactly. And we had to do it by plane, so it wasn't. Yeah, it had to be done in a short amount of time because it was right in the middle of the recordings. So the last headlining tour was probably with, I believe with Lacuna Coil, actually.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think it's 2018, if I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken.
something like that, 2018 or even 2017.
Yeah, it's either 17 or 18, but
I
you're
think
right.
17, yeah.
Was with Lacuna Coil. I think Insomnium was on that lineup as well,
Yeah.
if I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken.
Yeah.
It's a long, long time ago, because when you guys did those selective shows, once again, you skipped Toronto. I mean, I don't know what the people in Toronto have ever done to you guys, but
we're so sorry about that. That's no, yeah, it's also kind of weird. Why I have no idea why they actually skipped Toronto, because
it's just going to make the next show even more special.
there you go.
That's how we have to approach it. I have one last question.
I agree.
Yeah, I have one last question for you, and that is, as I follow what you guys have done, I mean, you guys are in the forefront of everything that you do. When I look back at the live stream that you guys did, or the stream they did, whatever you want to call it, it was magnificent. I mean, it was like Cirque du Soleil with music. It blew my mind. I was blown away by what you guys did with that stream. So is there anything left now with the Alchemy project? Is there anything left in the world that Epica can do that you guys haven't done yet?
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, that's a very good question, I must say. But to be honest, we already had the same thing. Well, for instance, when we did a retrospect, we were like, "Oh, how the hell are we going to top this?" Well, we did it. Also when we did like the Quantum Enigma, that was such a healthy album to make. Afterwards, it was like, okay, how the hell are we going to top this? Well, in my point of view, we did it. Yeah. Somehow, I mean, you have to stay triggered, you have to stay inspired, of course. And I mean, I can't predict the future, of course. I don't know, like, I can't predict like how creativity can work, because creativity is such an unpredictable process. But we'll always set the bar very high for us. But the good thing is, like, for instance, with this release, we've definitely learned that thinking out of the box is a very healthy thing for us, and it really stimulates our creativity as well. So there's a big chance that the next release of album or next release of Epica might be a little bit more out of the box than some people might be used to. I don't know. We'll see. But I can tell you, like you said, Cirque du Soleil is a perfect example. When we were in Las Vegas, we had a day off, and obviously we went to see Cirque du Soleil, and it was so inspiring to see that. Also, like, how it works production-wise and everything. When we came out, Koen and I and Isaac and I, we were looking at each other like, how the fuck are we going to top something like this? This is this is next level stuff. And that's also how you have to think. You have to think like you have to think in originality, you have to think in new dimensions and whatnot. So yeah, we'll see what the future brings. But
and not just think about it, but not being afraid of taking those gambles, those risks, and going
exactly.
And going out. A lot. I'm sure a lot of people think about it, but sometimes they don't have the courage to try it.
Exactly.
You guys are not afraid to do it.
Exactly, because like I said before, I remember when I just joined the band, one of the biggest projects that I did when I just joined the band was Retrospect. And I remember that it was like a huge financial risk, because what we basically did was we rented an empty venue, just like a hall. It's not officially like an official stage. And we just went for it. It was all our own money that we put into it. And you can also make a lot of loss out of it. But in the end, we made it. Same goes for the whole Omega Live thing, because that's something you all have to, that's what sometimes people don't realize. You think like, oh, the label's going to pay for it or whatsoever. No, we have to pay for that in a time when there is like no income coming over whatsoever. We're not doing shows, so we have to do it all with our own savings that we also have to make a living out of. So yeah, that was a huge financial risk as well, but we made it. We got through it, and it was like a pretty big success to call, at least. So you have to always. I mean, sometimes you take risk, and sometimes certain things don't work as you want to. But if you don't take any risk, you'll definitely won't make it.
No, exactly. And for you guys, I think now fans kind of expect you to always be pushing the envelope as well. It's kind of become part of the Epica DNA, if you will. So it's
yeah.
And this latest one, the Alchemy project, is just the latest installment of more craziness from the Epica camp coming forward. So I look forward to it. Yeah, Rob, thank you very much for your time today. I really appreciate you having the time to speak with me about this. And instead of seeing you in Brazil, I'll see you in Toronto the next time you guys are around.
Hopefully that will be next year. Let's fingers crossed.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Take care, man. All the best.
Cheers, man. Have a good one.